Midweek Pictorial, March 18, 1920. Detachment of the 31st American Infantry guarding a section of the Trans-Siberian Railroad in vicinity of Vladivostok. An American flag being presented to Major E.J. Swift, Center, by grateful Montenegrin soldiers in recognition of American aid. There was no American flag to be obtained in Montenegro, so a colored poster was used with the flag pictured upon it as a pattern. American sentry guarding a tunnel on the Trans-Siberian Railroad. The cold and snow make his work arduous. United States soldiers are now being withdrawn through the port of Vladivostok, and in a short time all of them will be on their way home. A remarkable photograph of the varied types of soldiers who make up the International Police of Vladivostok. They are used for patrolling the streets and keeping order in that disturbed seaport. Left to right are a Russian, Japanese infantryman, Japanese sailor, American Marine, American Blue Jacket, Czechoslovak, Italian, British, American, Japanese, and Russian regular. The influence of the Bolshevist government has reached across Siberia, and a Soviet form of municipal rule has been established in Vladivostok. On top of hill is the Near East Relief Mission compound, where American relief workers and their charges were besieged for 3 weeks while Turkish soldiers massacred Armenians by thousands. Armenian women and children who escaped the massacre waiting to receive food. Once more, the world has been shocked by the news that Armenians by the thousands have fallen victims to the ferocity of the Turks. At Marash in Cilicia, in the latter days of January, an unprovoked attack began, and for 3 weeks a veritable reign of terror existed, while Armenian men, women, and children were hunted out and shot down by the Turkish nationalist troops. The French troops in the vicinity were too small to prevent the catastrophe. American relief workers in their compound near the city were under a constant rain of bullets while the murders were in progress. The arrival of French reinforcements finally enabled surviving Armenians to escape to a place of safety outside the city, and some of them are here seen waiting for the rations doled out by the relief workers. The Sultan of Turkey, Mohammed VI, at left, in his throne room talking with Major Davis Arnold, Director General of Near East Relief. The Sultan is approachable and genial, and under his rule many of the restrictions formerly in vogue have been relaxed. The Sultan's private mosque, only a few hundred feet away from the Yildiz kiosk. It is called the Mosque of Hamidiye. Every Friday, the Sultan, Mohammed VI, spends some time there at his private devotions. Group of the Sultan's aides and military advisors photographed on the steps of the palace in Constantinople. At right is an American officer on duty in the Turkish capital. The monuments of the Tsarist regime are being dismantled or destroyed as rapidly as possible in Soviet Russia. The statue of Alexander III is here shown being taken apart. It is to be re-erected in one of the museums. Imperial insignia are also being taken down or erased from public buildings. Another view is here shown of the Alexander III statue with the crowned head lying on the ground. Obelisk erected to the memory of the Russian author Andreev, who died during the war. His death was hastened by the excitement of a Bolshevist raid near the town where he was residing. He was a writer of great ability, though his works are characterized by horror and morbid introspection. One of the most interesting photographs recently brought from Bolshevist Russia is this one, showing a chorus singing at the foot of the Andreev obelisk, erected to the memory of the famous Russian author in a square of Moscow. Immense throngs attended the ceremonies. Smoking ruins of the famous Hotel Chamberlain at Old Point Comfort, Virginia, photographed from the air. The loss is more than $1 million. New Brunswick, New Jersey, looking north on Albany Street, showing autos and trucks trying to cross the flooded area. The high watermark reached is shown by the ice on the fence, buildings, and telegraph poles. Rowboats are being used as conveyances. The flood was caused by a combination of heavy rains, a sudden thaw, and ice jams in the Raritan River. Washouts occurred on parts of the railroads in the state which, in conjunction with all the eastern Atlantic states, caught the tail end of the blizzard which came in from the west on March 6th. New York in winter. At the right may be seen Dr. Friedman's invention that removes ice and snow at the rate of 5 miles an hour. An endless chain of buckets, revolving in front, carries the snow into a hopper at the rear, whence it is removed to trucks. Spectacular fire caused in Chicago by a gas main being ignited by the blowing out of an electric fuse. For a time, the fire proved most obstinate, and frequent explosions threatened the destruction of a large amount of property in the south side section of the city. The firemen were compelled to work for 20 hours before the flames were extinguished. Funeral at Paris of Gaby Delis, the actress, well known on the stages of Europe and America. She died recently after a long and distressing illness. Perhaps in no other capital of the world than Paris would such a scene be possible. The hearse was covered with flowers sent by friends and admirers, and thousands of Parisians turned out to pay the last tribute. She had accumulated a considerable fortune, which was willed by her to the poor of Marseille, her native city. German soldiers laying wreaths on statue of Kaiser Wilhelm I in Danzig before evacuating that city. The great seaport on the Vistula that had immense commercial and political value to Germany passed from its control in January when it became a free city under the supervision of the League of Nations. The Germans constitute the moneyed mercantile class of the city, and their rights are safeguarded. The predominating influence henceforth will be Polish. The tiny Tom Thumb household and miniature furniture used by the smallest couple on Earth. The furniture is to be put in a special museum at Middlesbrough, Massachusetts. The little man here seen is Count Magri, the second husband of Mrs. Tom Thumb. Photograph which has just arrived in this country showing the King and Queen of Spain among the workmen of a new plant that had just been opened in Madrid. Whatever the troubles that have swept over Spain, chiefly disputes between capital and labor, there is no denying the remarkable popularity of the royal family. The king is democratic and approachable, and the queen, formerly Princess Ina of England, is said to be the most beautiful queen in Europe. A great crowd of enthusiastic spectators witnessed the revival of an old custom at Ashbourne, Derbyshire, England, on February 17th, when a game of football was played in the river at that place. The teams, which could have as many players as they chose, were divided into the upwards and the downwards, according to the position they faced. The downwards are here shown making a determined attack. The game was rough and the water cold, but the ardor of both players and onlookers was at fever heat. In the background is the noble Lincoln Memorial Building at Washington. The exterior has been practically completed, and the interior is nearly finished. As can be seen, however, a great deal remains to be done before the grounds are properly laid out. The National Cemetery at Arlington at the nation's capital is the resting place of many of the nation's most distinguished dead. Its most beautiful feature is the amphitheater, herewith shown, designed for memorial services in honor of those who have nobly served their country. Near view of the amphitheater dedicated to the nation's heroic dead, showing stage where memorial services are held. Cloister of the amphitheater built of American marble and costing $825,000, now nearing completion. Huge Vickers Vimy passenger machine at Cairo, Egypt, where it was being tuned up for the last leg of the flight to Cairo. It had successfully negotiated the first stage from London to Cairo. General view of aeronautical show at the 71st Regiment Armory, New York. It is an impressive demonstration of the vast strides that have been made of late in the field of aviation. Mail, commercial, and individual machines are shown, together with latest types of motors. Regulars and rookies of the New York Giants tossing the medicine ball about on their training field at San Antonio, Texas. Babe Ruth, greatest batter in either of the major leagues, who is counted on for many home runs this season for the Yankees. At left is manager McGraw of the Giants, standing beside George Kelly, who will probably succeed Hal Chase at first base. Carl Mays, probably greatest underhand pitcher in the game. Miller Huggins, manager of the Yankees, batting flies to fielders at Jacksonville, Florida. Diamond at Jacksonville, Florida, where the players of the New York American League team are getting into shape for a season's playing which they hope will win for them the pennant. Child patients at Dr. Planta's open-air sanitarium at St. Moritz, Switzerland. The advocates of fresh air as a means of preserving or regaining health may find reinforcement for their theories in this picture. The children are thinly clad, and in some cases almost without any clothing, and the temperature often hovers about 0. Yet here they are enjoying a sledding party, and apparently do not suffer from the cold. Children at a Swiss sanitarium attending lessons in the open air. The elevation is high and the temperature extremely cold, but if the children are conscious of any discomfort, they do not show it in their faces. The treatment is said to be extremely efficacious, and a remarkable percentage of cures is reported. St. Moritz is a great winter pleasure and health resort, and the air, if cold, is very dry. Money, chiefly in pennies, collected in small barrels by New York schoolboys for the starving children of Armenia and Syria. As the result of 3 days' work among their classmates, they collected $86.85, and are here seen emptying their barrel before the members of the relief committee to be counted and forwarded. Scale model of the mammoth dirigible hangar to be erected by the Navy Department at Lakehurst, New Jersey. The hangar will be 800 feet long, 265 feet wide, and 74 feet high. It can hold a 10 million cubic foot airship. Young inventor who, with his wireless telephone, can hear 1,000 miles away. An interesting and important application of a now familiar principle has been made by a young Kansas inventor, Robert K. Trump of Topeka. He has contrived a generator of sufficient power to enable him to talk easily with people as far distant from Topeka as New York. Recently, he overheard a conversation between Robert F. Gowan, chief engineer of the DeForest Radio Telephone and Telegraph Company, and R.H.G. Matthews, a Chicago amateur, when they were trying out a generator of but 1/3 of 1 kilowatt power, and a new vacuum tube called the Alcyon. He is a musician also, and with the saxophone that is seen at the right, he frequently entertains fellow amateurs hundreds of miles away. Mr. Trump was formerly a sailor. Robert K. Trump, at left, a former sailor, only 21 years old, showing the generator of his wireless telephone to a visitor. Living in Topeka, Kansas, he can hear music played in New York.